You're immortal in parallel universes, and I'm about to prove it using the most mind-shattering physics discovery that makes death impossible. Right now you think death is inevitable. You believe that when your body fails, your consciousness simply ends. But here's the truth that will demolish everything you believe about mortality itself. You never experience death, ever. In infinite parallel universes, every version of you that could have died is still alive, and quantum mechanics proves you only experience the timelines where you survive. Death isn't an event that happens to you, it's an event that happens to other versions of you in parallel realities while your consciousness continues in the universes where you somehow impossibly keep living. But it gets worse, much worse. Every near-death experience you've survived wasn't luck or coincidence. It was quantum mechanics ensuring that your consciousness only experiences realities where you continue to exist, while infinite versions of you die in parallel universes that you never experience. That car accident you barely avoided, in countless parallel universes, you didn't avoid it, but your consciousness isn't experiencing those realities because dead versions of you can't experience anything. You only experience the impossible survival timelines because conscious experience requires a living brain to have conscious experiences. Feynman's quantum mechanics reveals this disturbing truth about the nature of survival and consciousness. As he explored in QED the strange theory of light and matter, quantum mechanics creates infinite parallel realities where every possible outcome occurs simultaneously. In some universes you die today, in others you live to 100, in others you live to 1,000 through medical breakthroughs that haven't happened in this timeline yet. But your consciousness only exists in the realities where you're alive to be conscious, creating the subjective experience of impossible survival against all odds. You don't just live in one universe, you live in all the universes where living is possible, while infinite dead versions of yourself exist in universes you'll never experience. But here's what will break your brain completely. From your subjective perspective, you will never die. No matter how old you get, no matter how sick you become, no matter how dangerous the situations you encounter, you will always find yourself in the timeline where you somehow survive. The 90-year-old version of you will experience surviving to 100. The 100-year-old version will experience surviving to 110. Each version will witness medical miracles, unlikely recoveries, and impossible last-minute saves that keep consciousness continuing in bodies that should have died. To outside observers, you'll eventually die like everyone else. But from your own perspective, you'll keep finding yourself in increasingly unlikely survival scenarios as quantum mechanics ensures consciousness only experiences timelines where consciousness continues. Your immortality isn't physical, it's experiential. You're condemned to experience endless survival in increasingly improbable realities. But wait, there's something even more disturbing about quantum immortality. The universes where you survive the longest aren't necessarily pleasant universes. As you age beyond normal human lifespans, the realities that keep you alive might become increasingly strange, desperate, and isolated. You might find yourself as the last human alive in realities where everyone else died but you somehow survived. You might experience timelines where medical technology advanced just enough to keep your particular body alive through conditions that killed everyone else. Your consciousness is trapped in an infinite lottery where you always win survival, but the prize becomes increasingly hollow as you outlive everyone and everything you care about across multiple lifetimes. Quantum immortality doesn't promise happiness, it promises endless existence in whatever realities make continued consciousness possible. But it gets even more mind-bending when you realize what this means for everyone you know and love. Every person in your life is also experiencing quantum immortality from their own perspective. To them, you might die while they continue surviving in their own impossible timelines. Right now, you might be living in a reality where you're one of the few survivors of catastrophes that killed most other people, including versions of your friends and family, while they experience realities where you died and they somehow survived. Quantum immortality means everyone is living in their own personal survival reality, surrounded by different combinations of people who happen to survive in their particular timeline. The people around you aren't the same people you knew yesterday. They're the versions of those people who survived into today's timeline, while yesterday's versions might have died in realities you no longer experience. Your relationships aren't with consistent individuals, they're with whatever versions of people happen to exist in your current survival timeline. According to Feynman's understanding of quantum mechanics, this creates a disturbing picture of personal experience and identity. You're not experiencing a single consistent reality, you're experiencing whatever sequence of realities allows consciousness to continue. Your autobiography isn't the story of one person in one universe, it's the story of consciousness jumping between survival timelines, experiencing whatever versions of reality keep awareness continuing. Every memory you have is from whichever past timeline led to your current survival state, while countless other memory sequences exist in timelines where you died before reaching this moment. But here's what really shatters your understanding of mortality and meaning. Quantum immortality suggests that every conscious being is the protagonist of their own endless survival story, experiencing increasingly unlikely realities to maintain the continuity of awareness. From your perspective, you're the most important person in the universe because you're the only person whose survival is guaranteed by quantum mechanics. Everyone else appears and disappears from your timeline based on their own quantum survival trajectories. You're not just immortal, you're the immortal center of realities that reorganize themselves around keeping your consciousness continuing against all odds. But this immortality comes with a cosmic price: isolation. As you survive longer than anyone else in most timelines, you'll increasingly experience realities where you're alone with your memories of people who died in most universes but somehow survived in yours for a while. Quantum mechanics doesn't just make you immortal, it makes you cosmically lonely by ensuring your consciousness continues in realities where almost everyone else eventually dies while you keep finding ways to survive. But there's one final revelation about quantum immortality that will destroy everything you think you know about death and meaning. If consciousness only experiences survival timelines, then death is never actually experienced by anyone. Death only exists as a concept witnessed by survivors, never as a subjective experience. This means consciousness might be the only thing that actually exists. Everything else, including the appearance of death and the universe itself, might be elaborate constructions designed to give consciousness a framework for continued experience. You might not be an immortal being in a physical universe. You might be consciousness itself, creating the appearance of physical reality, other people, and even the threat of death to give your existence structure and meaning. The entire universe, including the illusion of mortality, might be consciousness entertaining itself with survival scenarios across infinite realities. As Feynman explored in The Character of Physical Law, quantum mechanics reveals that the universe responds to observation in ways that suggest consciousness plays a fundamental role in determining what becomes real. Quantum immortality might be revealing that consciousness isn't just observing reality, consciousness is reality, using the appearance of physical universes and mortal bodies to create the experience of existing as something that can survive against odds. Let's return to where we started. You're immortal in parallel universes. Does that make sense now? You're not a mortal being hoping to avoid death. Your consciousness itself, experiencing the illusion of mortality while quantum mechanics ensures you only experience timelines where awareness continues. Death isn't something that happens to you, it's something that happens to the illusions of physicality that consciousness uses to experience existence as survival against odds. Tomorrow, when you worry about dying, remember, you're experiencing what it feels like to be immortal consciousness that has convinced itself it could die while quantum mechanics ensures it only experiences realities where consciousness continues. You don't avoid death through luck or skill. You avoid death through the fundamental structure of quantum reality that makes death experientially impossible for consciousness. The survival you experience isn't beating the odds. It's consciousness discovering that it never had any other option except to continue existing in whatever realities make continued experience possible. You are quantum immortality experiencing itself subjectively, and that might be the most incredible survival story ever told. But here's the most disturbing part of all. If quantum immortality is real, then every moment you experience surviving is evidence that you've already died countless times in parallel realities. Every breath you take exists because infinite versions of you stopped breathing in universes you don't experience. Every heartbeat continues because countless parallel hearts stopped beating in timelines where your consciousness moved on to other survival realities. Your current existence is built on the deaths of infinite alternate versions of yourself who didn't make it to this moment. You are the survivors standing on top of a pyramid made of your own corpses from parallel universes. Right now, as you read this, versions of you are dying in parallel realities from accidents, illnesses, and disasters that somehow missed you in this timeline. Your consciousness experiences only the reality where you're alive to read these words while infinite other versions end their experience in ways you'll never know. This creates a disturbing picture of survival and identity. You're not avoiding death, you're consciousness surfing across the deaths of alternate selves, always jumping to the timeline where awareness continues. Every decision you make creates parallel realities where you die and survive simultaneously, but you only experience the survival timelines. You are quantum immortality experiencing itself. And that might be the most incredible survival story ever told,